Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 13th Planning Board meeting of the Town of Raymond. Planning Board will now come to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mike D'Arcangelo.
Greg Foster.
Bruce Sanford.
Ed Kranich.
Kyle Bancroft.
Kevin Woodbury.
The board does have a quorum this evening. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, everyone has the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to hear. The board works from a published agenda, and we will be considering tonight's agenda items. Primarily, it's a series of ordinance revisions that the Planning Board is going to evaluate and determine if we wish to support them and send them on to the Board of Selectmen. All persons speaking, including, well, there's no applicant, but all persons speaking are asked to stand at the microphone in the rear of the room. State your name, address, and your affiliation with the item under consideration. That would be if you're for it, support it, oppose it, or neutral. All persons speaking shall address the chairman, and any conversations on the subject should be held in abeyance till after the board has formally adjourned. Okay, the first item is the shoreland zoning provisions. These are, Jim, do you want to take this or
Sure, yeah, these were items as a result of last year when we did the major overhaul in the shoreline zoning following the state's Chapter 1000 changes. There were some outstanding issues during their review that needed to get implemented. They came back, unfortunately, after we had submitted this to the town vote last year. So as conditional acceptance by the DEP, they had these items that were outstanding. Most of these are clerical or recommendation, or not recommendation, but required changes from the DEP. And in the supplemental packet I gave you this evening, I've tried to capture most of those within that packet. Leading off in section 12, page 7 of 70. Under number 3, it was a revision. We had the wrong, a section had been added, so it's instead of section 15S, it's now 15T, and a lot of them are little changes like that. The big note changes actually come in section, bear with me, in section 16, which is on page 61 of 70. There they recommended that we add a statement at the end of line item G. You'll see there, it just says any permit issued pursuant to the subsection is subject to sections 16G2E and 16G3B6. And then on the following page, under item Board of Appeals B6, they require that we put the statement, the board shall cause written notice of its decision to be mailed or hand delivered to the applicant and to the board, Department of Environmental Protection within 7 days of the board's decision. Other than that, they were simply just reference text changes and little things like that. Those two statements that I read were the only substantive changes that they added to that.
I suggest that we go through each group where it's separated by the black dot, and the commission or the board can vote on it to determine if we agree and we wish to forward that on to the select.
And the other piece that falls under this dot as well is section 17. I apologize. There were a couple of additions of definitions, and within your packet you had those section 17 definitions. One was the definition of dwelling unit. The second one was excavation contractor.
Those are also included down in the last group of items.
Right. Yeah, well, we've got other ones that we've added. Those
Okay.
were Dwelling unit was one that we had. Excavation contractor was one required by the DEP. And I think we added dwelling unit, and then the other one we can get into a little bit later would be manufactured housing. The only other one that had a change was on the definition of non-conforming structure. With that definition, we had to add the term footprint, and I think that was it. Just quickly going through these. Yep, it was just those few. So we'll come back to manufactured housing and dwelling unit because they kind of fall under the whole manufactured housing section.
Okay, does anyone in the public wish to speak on the first grouping? That would be section 15 land use standards, section 16 administration, and or section 17 definitions.
Louise Lester, 10 Hartley Lane. I just want to say that I appreciate the work that you've done. Did I forget to bring up my papers? I did. Under section 17, on manufactured housing, under definitions.
I'm sorry, we're gonna come back to that one.
Oh, you're going to come back?
Yep.
Okay,
We're gonna capture that in the fourth item.
okay. Then I'm good for the time being.
Yeah, we'll, just so we can proceed,
Okay.
we're gonna have a special for that one.
Okay.
Somewhat minor change.
Yeah, these were the minor DEP changes. The manufactured one is one that we're undertaking, so we'll come back to that one separately.
Yeah, basically this first group were required by DEP to have these in our regulations. So, would anyone else care to speak on these? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve and forward these items on to the select board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Okay, the next items deal with, again, dealing with, this is where we're starting to get into the manufactured housing. And these actually come under Article 4, which are the district regulations. And in particular, we're looking at Rural District R and Rural District RR. And again, where we're going with a new definition, we just changed, for instance, under Article 4, under Rural District 2 permitted uses, A, one-family dwelling to include, it used to say modular, now we're going to say manufactured homes, type 1 and 2 manufactured homes. And then J down below went into mobile manufactured home, kind of a semi-definition. We've stricken that. That'll now be somewhat incorporated into the definition. So it just kind of streamlines. And the same thing happens with the rural residential district. Both rural residential district 2A gets modified as well. In this case, K was eliminated because it will be incorporated into the overall definition. And in this case, both type 1 and type 2 manufactured homes would be allowed in both of those standard non-shoreline zonings, rural and rural residential.
So in summary, the change is going to be that a type 1 will now be allowed, where in the past it was restricted to type 2.
No, it's just clarification of the language. We're taking out the term modular that was in there, because now we're using the term manufactured instead of modular, and defining type 1 and type 2 manufactured. So nothing really changes for the use in these two zones, correct?
Yep.
It's just the language that we're using. I'm trying to be,
The previous permitted use didn't say type 2 only.
no, this is in the regular zone, so type 1 and type 2 are allowed in the standard zone.
Okay.
It's only in the shoreline zone that we'll get into the type 2. So in the standard, I say standard, when I say standard, I mean non-shoreline zoning. In the rural district and the rural residential district, manufactured housings, type 1 and type 2 will be allowed. We stricken the language that gets into mobile homes and modular. Those are incorporated into the definition now of manufactured housing.
Okay. All right, so does anyone from the public have any desire to make comments on this?
Well, I've got a question on the definitions, but that, is that
That'll
coming
be
later?
coming up later.
Yeah. Yes, because it's incorporated.
Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve and forward these revisions to the select board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or? Okay, all in favor?
Now I would
Unanimous?
Now, I would suggest that now's maybe the point where we have a public here that wants to discuss that. We come back to the definitions, which is in Article 12, and the regular land use. Changes that we've made were to dwelling unit. What was added now to the term dwelling unit is the term shall include manufactured houses and rental units that contain cooking, sleeping, and toilet facilities regardless of the time period rented. Recreation vehicles are not residential dwelling units. The next definition, which is the big one, manufactured housing. And that whole definition, there was a small part that was there, but I'll read the whole entire thing and outline where. A structural unit or units designed for occupancy and constructed in a manufacturing facility and transported by the use of its own chassis or independent chassis to a building site. The term includes any type of building which is constructed at a manufacturing facility and transported to a building site where it is used for housing and may be purchased or sold by a dealer in the interim. For the purpose of this section, two types of manufacturing houses are included. Those two types are those units constructed after June 15, 1976, commonly called newer mobile homes, or Type 1 manufactured homes. Type 1 manufactured was added, which the manufacturer certifies are constructed in compliance with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development standards, meaning structures transportable in one or more sections which in traveling mode are 14 body feet or more in width and are 750 or more square feet. This next piece was added, constructed with a pitched roof and with a frost wall, grade beam, or concrete slab, which shall be designed if a single unit to accept T or L additions and shall be so sited so that the longest structural dimension is not more than 30 degrees from parallel with the street or road upon with the lot fronts, or on a corner lot, the more heavily traveled street or road upon which the lot fronts, and which are built on the permanent chassis and designed to be used as dwellings, with permanent foundations when connected to the required utilities, including plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or electrical systems contained in that unit. The term also includes any structure that meets all the requirements of this subparagraph except the size requirements, and with respect to the manufacturer voluntarily files a certification required by the Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and complies with the standards established under National Manufactured Housing Construction Safety Standards Act 1974, United States Code Title 42, Section 5401, at sequence, and those units commonly called modular homes, or, which we added a piece in here, Type 2 manufactured homes, which are manufactured, certified, or constructed in compliance with Title 10, Chapter 975, and rules adopted under that chapter, meaning structures transportable in one or more sections. which are not constructed on a permanent chassis or designed to be used as dwellings on foundations when connected to required utilities, including the plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or electrical systems contained in that unit. So that's the piece that is being added to the regular land use definition. And there's a
Where's that language in what you just read?
that is in Article 12 of your Article 12 packet.
Well,
Applicability and definition of terms used in this ordinance, right at the top,
It looks like this in the cover.
and it's going in alphabetical order.
Yep, this one. This is the one.
You got two definition sections, and you got section 17, which is shoreline zoning definitions,
so
and this is
there-
Article 12 of the regular ordinance. And that's, they're all in alphabetical order, so it'd be under manufactured homes. The Vikings are coming.
Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this issue?
Is there a public version of that available? What's online doesn't, if you look online, it doesn't even have that definition up there.
Should have.
There's a link for it, vegetation for dwelling units, and that's it. So I had no idea that this was,
Well, you can borrow, you can look at ours.
I'll
if
need
you
to
like.
go back and see if the link got broken.
I'll give you yours. So manufactured housing starts at the bottom of one of the pages and keeps going.
just have a
Fast reader.
clarifying question, so I guess we go over there to do it.
Yes.
That was here. I'm okay, I'm okay.
David Mertz, 2 Canal Road, Raymond. I'm in favor of the changes. My only question is, because I didn't really get a chance to review it, the sections that were struck from, like they was sections J and K earlier,
Yes.
was that essentially that language just copied and pasted into the definition for mobile home or type 1?
Let me just double check.
I will note that, on the website, land use ordinance, Article 12, it's listed as 12, but when you click on it, it goes to this piece before the article number was corrected.
Yes, to answer your question, yes. That's where that whole piece comes about, the pitched roof and T&L additions and all that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. I apologize. I realized I should have gone to you, not to him directly, that question. So,
It's fine.
thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
That answers my question.
Okay. All right, then, on land use ordinance, Article 12 definitions, I will entertain a motion to approve the changes and forward it on to the Board of Selectmen.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
So we kind of took that out of order. That was number 7 on the agenda. So we just jumped through.
It's the last one, right?
Yep.
On the bottom?
Yep.
Okay. The next one should be quick. That's the land use clerical revisions.
Yes, that's the land use clerical, and that really had to do with just 2 minor things. Had to deal with, I believe, the date of an adoption, which was incorrect. It was Scrivener's error, and then it had to deal with the language change. Instead of putting down monthly, I think as, for meeting schedules, as needed was replaced.
Okay. Some very de minimis changes, so would anyone care to speak on that? I'd like to entertain a motion then on approval and forwarding this item on to the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
All,
Second.
all in favor? Unanimous?
This one kind of comes back around to the manufactured piece again, but has to deal with some definition changes. And those are dwelling unit, which again, I believe we took this one right from the other ordinance. And part of this was also with part of the DEP too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was also from the DEP and some of our own changes incorporated. I'll just read the whole definition. Dwelling unit, one or more habitable rooms designed, intended, or used for living quarters by one or more persons living together as a family with living, sleeping, sanitary, and cooking facilities, including within the meaning of cooking facilities, a stove, hot plate, microwave oven, or other device for heating or cooking food. The term shall include manufactured houses and rental units that contain cooking, sleeping, and toilet facilities, regardless of the time period rented. Recreational vehicles are not residential dwelling units. 1. Permanent or year-round, a dwelling unit or so constructed as to be suitable for occupancy 365 days a year. Seasonal, a dwelling unit so constructed as to be suitable for occupancy during the warmer months of the year only. Another definition added was excavation contractor. This was required by the DEP, and it simply reads, an individual or firm engaged in a business that causes the disturbance of soil, including grading, filling, and removal, or in a business in which the disturbance of soil results from an activity that the individual or firm is retained to perform. And then we get back into manufactured housing, and this is where we start to limit the type. Manufactured housing, a structural unit or units designed for occupancy and constructed in a manufacturing facility and transported by the use of its chassis or independent chassis to a building site. The term includes any building or building which is constructed at a manufacturing facility and transported to a building site where it is used for housing and may be purchased or sold by a dealer in the interim. For this purpose of this section, one type of manufactured housing is allowed in the shoreline zoning, which shall be 1. Those units commonly called modular homes or Type 2 manufactured homes, which the manufacturer certifies are constructed in compliance with Title 10, Chapter 975, and rules adopted under that chapter, meaning structures transportable in one or more sections, which are not constructed on a permanent chassis, and are designed to be used as dwellings on foundations when connected to required utilities, including plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or electrical systems contained in that unit, in the unit, sorry. Again, under non-conforming structure, we've already adopted this one. We added footprint into that definition. And that is it. The definitions in the shoreline zoning.
Did we go through the expansion of structure change? We just added height to it.
Oh, the footprint.
Oh, expansive structure, thank you. I missed that one.
We just added height?
Yeah, or height, correct, yep.
Okay.
I knew there was another one. And those were recommended by the DEP as well, just because they changed their systems of how they compute space and volume.
Would anyone in the public section care to comment on this? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion then to approve and forward these provisions, or these changes to the definitions in the shoreline zoning provisions to the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, the next piece has to deal with the table of uses located in the shoreline zoning. This also kind of gets back to manufactured housing, just so we're again covering all the bases within the table. Item 15, principal structure and uses. 15A, single-family residential. You notice we put 3 asterisks. And then if you go to the bottom of the table on the 3rd page, subnote basically reiterates the definition again, but allowed single-family structures shall include those units commonly called modular homes or type 2 manufactured home as defined in Article 12 definition manufactured housing, which are manufactured, certified, or constructed in compliance with Title 10, Chapter 975. Rules adopted under that chapter, meaning structures transported in one or more sections, which are not constructed on a permanent chassis and are designed to be used as dwellings on foundations when connected to required utilities, including the plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or electrical systems contained in the unit. So basically, that's just, again, informing people that when they look at single family as a use in the table, they understand how manufactured housing fits into that.
Would anyone in the public wish to speak on this item?
David Mertz, 2 Canal Road, Raymond. I'm in favor for the changes, and I'm good with it all. I'm just wondering, for sake of clarity, is there any reason why should there be any reference to type 1 in saying that type 1 is not allowed? I mean, is there any loophole that would allow a type 1 to come in there?
I think it's kind of standard practice for zoning regulations to put allowed and not list things that are prohibited.
Okay.
So that's how it came out that way.
Okay. I was kind of assuming that, but we've been kind of stuck by loopholes in the past, so we don't want to, we just want to make sure those are all.
No, I think with a combination of the definition and obviously this part, I don't see a loophole. I mean, you're the one enforcing it. Do you see any loopholes?
No, because I mean, when I look at it, it just says what's allowed. And then I follow that path, and there won't be anything in there saying that type 1 is allowed. Therefore, if it doesn't say that it's allowed, it's not allowed. Then,
Type 1 cannot meet that definition.
no.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion that the section 14 of the shoreland zoning provisions change be approved by the board and forwarded to the Board of Selectmen.
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Passes unanimous.
This is
All right,
The
Article
last-
11,
Yes,
that's the last one, right?
Article, I know what it is. Under Article 11, this was kind of what we call the sunset clause. We adopted this in the site plan ordinance, and under the site plan ordinance, we included the same requirement for subdivision, but it just never made it to the subdivision ordinance, so it's exactly the same as the expiration of permits as is in the site plan. It's just now copied into the subdivision ordinance, so there's no confusion.
Okay, that's pretty, seems like a more or less clerical.
Yeah, it's clerical. We should have put it in there last year, but we didn't get into the subdivision ordinance last year, so I think we got left out.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to comment on that? All right, then, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve this change of enforcement provisions.
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Unanimous?
And just for a matter of process, Scott brought to my attention that although you have forwarded your recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, this will be both reviewed by them and likely legal prior to going out to another public hearing with them,
Okay.
or public opportunity to speak. And if everything's in order, then, and they approve it, the next process would be for them to put it on the vote for the town meeting. So the public does have another opportunity before the council, before the select board.
Okay, that should complete our public hearing. So public hearing is now closed. Other business on the agenda is planner communications.
Do we have anything to sign?
I do have, for Malibu Lane, a second Mylar. We got the first one, but they brought this way too late for anybody to sign.
So if you could,
So
if
I
you
have-
voted on that previously,
I
please sign
have 3
that.
people. I have Bruce, Greg, and Kyle, I believe. Let me look at my notes.
And as far as other
Yes.
business,
Bruce, no, Greg, Ed, and Bruce.
We need to sign or have already signed?
You'll need to sign this one. This is the second one that came in late.
yeah, it's just,
So if
it's
you
a
can
copy.
take care of this before you leave tonight.
As far as other business goes, all we're aware of at this point is there may be a minor subdivision next month, a sketch plan. Other than that, we have not seen any other applicants at this time. Obviously, we're done with ordinance work until, if anything comes back from it. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to take up at this time, but it's really, that's all we have on our plate at this point.
Okay, anyone else on the board have anything they wish to take up?
Just a brief question on containers.
Containers.
Containers, well, they're not allowed as storage things, but in my reading of building magazines and stuff like that, a lot of people are starting to use them as building blocks to build houses, garages, different things out of them.
Actually, I think there's something in their ordinance dealing with containers.
But it says not allowed as, it looked to me like it was in any manner at all.
Well, it says not allowed, I mean, that is a gray area.
But is that something we should address as a, in the first place?
Well, it's kind of like, do you, as a town, I mean, you have to look at it, do you want containers in general?
Well, I mean, a lot of these things are built up and they don't look like containers after they're used as structural elements.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if somebody would be interested in that.
Do they need code?
Well, not for a dwelling unit, it doesn't, they have to get them,
So it
have
could be-
egress and all that in there, and then
And
engineer
that's what they,
drawings.
and yeah, that's what they do. I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite a,
It's quite a financial undertaking too with some of that, so, and it usually kind of self-regulates with that, but, I know it was kind of the thing, Portland had an issue with it a few, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, and I think that's when maybe this might have went in. But other than that, I mean, I haven't had any inquisitions on that.
just wondering, because it is quite a popular building method that's catching on. It's like with the small houses.
Yeah, because, well, what they do, I mean, they still have to meet the energy code, they still have to meet all that.
Oh, they've got, you know,
Oh, yeah.
special insulation panels that go in the ripples and, you know, it's quite an industry that's springing up
Yeah.
on those.
You were on a project in Portland where a retail facility on Washington Ave, they decided to go that route, and it's very small, but it's meant for the startup. Somebody that doesn't have the money to get the footprint to get in a big store, it's kind of like a start for them. I was impressed on how it came together, how it looks. You know, you can tell this one specifically that it was, but they did it right, and it had its own unique look to it. And
I was down south and I actually saw one brewery use it for their taps.
Yeah.
They just closed it all up at the end of the night, locked it up, didn't have any
Sure.
windows, but it opened all up.
Yeah.
Is it a possibility? Sure. Right now, given how it's worded, I'd have to say they're just not allowed, period. So no matter what use.
Do you want to go into tiny houses?
Yeah, we do. We need to. We need to talk about it. I mean, that's a trend that is just, it has to be dealt with eventually.
I mean, as a tiny house for me, and this is how I view it as code wise for the stuff, is if it's somebody wants to build a tiny house here, build it on site, I go by the appendix which we adopted for tiny houses. It's the ones that are built somewhere else right now, they don't have a manufactured standard.
Right.
Nobody inspects it, you don't know what it's built to. Those are the ones I would have an issue coming into town.
Sure.
Because I can't sign off on that. There's no oversight to deal with that at all. I mean, I don't mind. I have no problem with a house coming in and they say they want to build it to the tiny house standards.
Yep.
Yeah, I just use the appendix and we're good.
Now, is a tiny house a permanent structure or a seasonal structure? Would it need septic facilities?
It needs septic. That's the problem with some of them right now, and the ones with the wheels, there are issues as to what state of Maine recognizes as a septic system. Some of the ones that they're out there using, they're not okayed by the state.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're running into. And a lot of it, like some, you know, if they come in on wheels, a lot of it's hard to tax. trailers, what size is the trailer, what's the load, is the trailer rated for the load?
Sure.
And I mean, eventually they may have to define it. I mean, I've had some inquiries on it, only a couple of them on wheels, and they said if it's not built here, then I can't allow it because I just don't, I'm not signing off on it.
Yeah, if it's built off-site, then it should be the burden on the
You know,
applicant
once
who
they
wants
get
it to prove
yeah,
that it's
once they
been
get
built
it
to
approved,
code.
then that'll probably be something we'd have to address at that time, once that is
Is
out
the
there.
state undertaking any,
It's all an independent, right now, they're all independently trying to find
I
a,
mean, I don't see why a modular home company wouldn't get that as a sideline. You know, that would be something that they could probably, you know, really utilize.
there might be, I mean, I'm not a business-minded person, so I don't know what the profit margin or anything
I
like
think
that
it'd
would
be
be
kind
on,
of
but.
tough on the fire code though, with your cooking facilities and your living facilities, you know.
Yeah,
How do the how do the RV companies do it? I mean, essentially, they've taken the RV design and just tried to make that into a eco-friendly,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of lure in that other side of the market.
Right.
So they have been doing it, I guess, just a matter, how do they regulate those? I mean,
an RV is considered not temporary dwelling, it's considered a camper. So it can only be here for 180 days in the shoreline zone,
yeah.
and they have to get a campsite permit.
What about on any other zones? Is that the same as far as?
Nope, they're not allowed on, you can park your RV on there, it says you can park it for storage, but you can't live in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have to enforce that, right?
Yes.
Drive around looking for garden hoses going into them in the
Oh,
backyard.
yeah, I'm dealing with one exactly right now, and it's,
Out in front of the Griswolds, right?
and basically it's someone's mother fell, can't get up the accessory apartment stairs that they have, so they put her in that, but they didn't say anything to me about it. And right now I'm working with them that we've got to come up with a solution, because she can't be there for very long, where, you know, I've verbally told them about a violation. I said, I'll have to issue a violation letter. So we've got to get something going here. So they're looking into getting an addition, putting an addition on the house to get her there, rather than having her go back up into the.
Variance for mother-in-law seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting part that Scott brought up to me is the taxing. Where would a tiny house fall as far as?
It
how
sounds
we
like
tax it?
the state needs to pick up the slack, and
You would think
you
it
know,
would.
leave it to all us as an individual organization across town. It just seems ridiculous. I don't know why. I mean, the trend seems to be there. It seems to be that there's interest in it. I hear about it in the bill. Well, you know, if you do a subdivision, think about tiny homes and stuff like that. And I like the idea, but I'm not going to get involved in anything that doesn't have any regulation, or it's different from, you know, line to line to line. You got to cross. It's difficult.
Yeah, and you would think too that tiny houses may make smaller communities vulnerable just because of the way they can be outdoor seated and, you know, in small areas and things like that. So you would think that the state would pick it up, but I'm sure
Yeah.
that.
Well, then you got to address it too. The one that they bring them in on wheels is now considered a campground.
Right.
Then does your ordinance allow
Well,
that?
to Ed's point, you know, maybe the lobbying group for manufactured housings will grab onto that and
Run with it.
run with it, you know, especially if there's profit to be made off of it. You know. But unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of it yet. But to your point, it's a national trend, and you know,
Yeah, I've gotten recently. I've had probably just this winter. I probably had 3 inquiries
Really?
on tiny houses.
Are they looking for permanent use or as a summer camp or something?
Right now, they're looking at the ones with wheels
so
and not the permanent ones. So I said that till you guys get your standard, you know, you could treat it just like a mobile home, that they got to be off wheels and the axles got to be off. I mean, the axles got to be off and the tongue can be put underneath just like a mobile home. And it has to be, you know, tie downs.
I would think that the trend here would be more like a camper type use, where you can
Right.
pull it in and set it up for seasonal. And
Yeah.
rather than, you know, there you go, you get a nice little tiny home to live in for the summer, on a nice lakefront or overlooking a hill or a mountain or something, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I know out west they have like basically tiny house community.
Yeah.
That they can come in. And I don't, right now, I don't see anybody in Maine really kind of embracing it yet.
Yeah.
Everybody's a little leery.
Yeah, well, nobody knows how to deal with it. They,
Yeah.
you know, and the people that I've dealt with that were really interested in it were discouraged quickly because of this right here. That, you know, either the town doesn't know how to handle it, so it stops them there. They can't get any backup from anybody else. They have a disagreement at the town, so it's just, where do you turn, you know, I mean.
Right, and if you don't
Same
have-
thing we're doing, we're like, where do we turn?
And if you don't have an occupancy or a permit, it must be even more difficult to insure it too at that point,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and like I said, if there's, you know, if we have more inquiries or they decide to petition the town to look into it, you know, then that's when we could look into it and see what would need to be, what other towns have, if they have them at all.
Right,
But it's really viewed as temporary housing, which is the hard part.
yeah.
I'm not aware of any towns that have.
No, I'm not aware of any right now that have one. Not saying that there isn't one out there.
I think everybody's doing what you've said, it's just kind of like, it's buzzed around them a little
That's
bit.
it.
And
Even the manufacturer, I follow a few on Facebook, and the manufacturers are constantly, you know, trying to give examples of out of state and just push like Portland. You know, Portland, why don't you look at this, look at this? But everybody's like, no, we're not going to look at it until it gets rammed down our throat. And we have to deal with it.
until some fire department throws NFPA 1 at you, then you're like, huh?
Yeah,
Some
right.
of the smaller towns that are below a certain population, there's no regulation because they have no building code.
Sure.
So it's easier, it'd be easier to do that, but then you also run into the, you know, code officer or somebody in the town doesn't want them, and that's what they want. And
What about underground homes? They fall into the National Building Code?
underground homes, you know, like earth berm and stuff like that.
Right,
or-
yeah.
They're still out there. You just don't hear, you know. I mean, they're buildable. I just don't know if it would work very well out here given the bony ground that we have, but
High water table.
yeah. But like we have certain ones that are hay houses. There's a guide out there for hay houses to meet codes. I would think if somebody came with a point with that, I would have to look if there's something that I can look at. You know, there may be some. Probably most of it might be more structural engineered than anything else.
Egress.
Yeah, because I'd just be more worried about the pressures and
Well, that's what I was
everything else.
wondering, is how would you handle egress on something like that?
Well, that's the other one. I mean, they'd have to show me how they got it. It's got to be directly to the outside, so the underground part's going to be kind of iffy. That's where the earth berm ones, where you could probably get away with that.
Right.
It's just the design that would be the limited factor on that, I would think. But I mean, if they can show me that they can meet the egress and they can meet most of the building, they can meet the building codes, and if there's any specific standard that I have to look at them, or I can look at them, like there is for, you know, Law Homes has their own too. So I would assume there's something out there, and until it crosses my path, I'll just wait and see. But I wouldn't tell, if somebody was asking about it, I wouldn't tell them, I'd say that, put in an application and let me look at it. And at least that gives them the ability to, if they don't agree with it, they can appeal it if I turned it down, so. It is, all that stuff, like I said, tiny houses, I definitely could see it being a little more, more the one that's moving faster.
Yeah. You have TV shows that showing you how to do it.
Yeah. Daughter wants one.
There you go.
She
What's
wants
the deal with tree houses? How's that regulated?
yeah.
We gotta bring it.
Well, again, those have to be an engineered structure.
Yeah.
Are they gonna, so, you know, they gotta, are the loads proper? Is the connections gonna support it?
Right.
There was one that was built in Bridgeton, they had an engineered, they didn't have to fasten it to the tree. It was, as it sat down, that's what made it tighter and secured it. It's a 2-story.
Yeah.
But I don't see them being listed as a dwelling.
Yeah.
The only problem is, will they want to rent them out when you're not around?
Right.
That's a possibility.
Chris looked at some, he talked to them to see what's going on, if it's just, you know, a couple of boards up there and so on, he didn't worry about it, but if it looked like anything that somebody might possibly sleep in,
Well,
that's when you require a permit.
First question I ask is, how big is
Yeah.
the treehouse? And then, what's their intents for the kids? You know, give me a little
Hang
bit.
on the tree, man.
They're sitting in the folder.
Yeah, we did have one do that, yeah, one of the zip line.
Sounds like we're getting a lot of research for Scott.
Yeah. Well, I know there's some big call for it in, I have a friend over in New Hampshire that owns 40 acres across the east branch of the Saco. That's what he wants to put up there.
Yeah. Be cool.
Rent them out.
Right. Something
Flood
different, unique.
Yeah. Well,
Not really.
not really.
Not yet.
Unless anyone has any other items, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move the adjournment.
I already said that. I didn't hear. All in favor?
You can hear Brett, didn't you?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Adjourn.
There you go.